Barigani, everyone. This is the Conscious Corner coming to you to speak truth, to speak directly to Black people about Black issues. This is a round table discussion about parenting with co-host Joe Hembrick, Professor Joe Hembrick, historian, as well as Rashaki and Sister Aziza is on the line also. We're going to be discussing one of the most critical areas of African-American development, and that is how we raise our children as parents, the role of a parent, the needs of a parent, and the challenge of parents that we face in a predominantly white society with where we develop white habits. And sometimes we model our families after white people, even though we are African. And then at the same time, we got to recognize the diversity of parenting, that there's some people that raise their parenting based on their religion. May they be Muslim, may they be Christian, may they be Hebrew, may they be Israelite, may they be agnostic, well, not agnostic because they wouldn't be religious then, but the different versions of Christianity, you know, the way holiness raised their families, different with the way a Baptist would raise theirs, as well as a Jehovah's Witness raised their children different from a Methodist. So we look at that. And then we also look at individuals that raise their children based upon how they were raised and based upon what they think they want their children to be and how they want their children to be. Then you got the diversity of parenting structures. And this day and age, it has changed. You have some situation where it's a power nuclear family with the father and mother there. Then you have single parenting. At one time, they used to call them bastard children, that a dysfunctional family if the man wasn't there or if a single parent was raising their children. And then they changed it to single parenting. Then you got the question of same-sex parenting, whereas two men who are married or together adopt a child and raise them, or two women. Sometimes they come with children and get into various same-sex relationships and become same-sex parenting. In other words, a mother get divorced and then she falls in love with another woman, but she has two or three young kids, and so her new lover comes in and help her raise them. So there's a lot of diversity, not just with Black people, but that's the way family structures are in the United States. What we're trying to do is deal with Blackness and how do you raise your children regardless of the structure, regardless of your religion, and regardless of all those dynamics. How do you raise your children to be Black conscious, Black active, and aware of their Blackness, and at the same time love you as a parent and take on your guidance and you win their love, and how do you keep your children in love with you and discipline them, cherish them, and challenge them. So that's what we're going to be discussing this evening. So, Joe, you have anything you want to add?
I had a thought that kind of escaped me at the moment.
I'll call you right back.
We're speaking. Oh, I'm unmuted. It'll come back to me. Such an array of stuff out there as far as this subject goes. Maybe I'll just comment as people, say certain aspects of it. Yeah, so I kind of let it roll like that. But definitely a noble task and warrants examination. Situation that we're in this country as you're doing it. So I'll come in later.
All right then. Rashaki, you have anything you want to add?
Well, I'll talk about it as you lay out the different points, and I add to it, make a comment or two.
Okay. What about Aziza, do you have any comments you want to start off with about parenting?
No, not at this moment.
Okay. Brother Shaheed, welcome. You, you want to say hello about Bonnie Ghani or something? We can't hear you.
Bonnie Ghani, how y'all doing?
All right, then my son Shaheed is on, and we're talking about parenting and the diversity of parenting, cherishing and challenging our children, and at the same time dealing with the diversity of parenting with regards to structures of Black people based upon their experience in America. They're based on their identity in America, based upon their relationships with this predominantly white structure, as well as how it affects their relationship with their children and their philosophy and ideology with regards to raising their children. Well, probably one of the best books on development of Black children and parenting to a certain degree by Dr. Amos Wilson, a psychologist. May all the good he brought in the world last forever. He's passed on. But he wrote a book, The Psychological Development of the Black Child, where he makes the comment that the Black child is unique and that you shouldn't raise your Black child as if they are not Black and are not going to have a Black experience, and that they are exposed to the culture of what's outside while they're in the womb based upon the mother and the father interaction with them from the standpoint of, that's where crack babies come from, alcohol babies come from. If the mother's going through a lot of anxieties or a sense of pressure or depressions or hypertensiveness, that will affect the baby while they're in the womb. He talks about all those dynamics that a Black child is unique and that we should always look at them that way, regardless of who the parent is. Because you got foster parents, you got what they call extended family parenting, like grandparents and aunties that's raising people, raising children from their relatives. Then you have augmented families where a friend just take the child in and raise them versus, that happens a lot in the South, whereas kids run away and they'd rather stay with a friend and go back home and those type of things and those type of structures. But I want to get into, the challenges and what any of you think are some of the challenges Black parenting have, regardless of your religious persuasion, regardless of your gender persuasion, and regardless of your economic persuasion. What are some of the fundamental aspects that you think are problematic to raising children today? Some people say they take away discipline, where you can't whip the children. Some say you take away there's too much regulations by the government and with child protective services and things of that nature. We've had situations where some kids grow up and want to divorce from their parents. And then you have situations where some parents do not emphasize education, they're just different structures. But I just wanted to get some feedback so we can elaborate on these issues. So Shahid, what do you think? Take you off mute.
For me in my circles, I have come across what the issue is two things that I've noticed. Not for me personally. I always talk to my kids about race and how it could play effect to them and getting ahead. But I do know I have some friends that they don't. So I don't even know if they identify as Black, but they are Black, they're mixed, and they avoid the race issue altogether. I believe mostly because they believe that if they talk about it, that their child is going to see themselves as already being handicapped or being held back mentally. Like, oh, I'm not gonna get ahead just because I'm Black. That's how they feel that their child is going to accept that conversation. So they really just avoid the whole race conversation as a whole, whether it's on TV or anything. They kind of just head in the dirt about it, like that's not reality. Don't let that get you down, or don't even worry about that. It's all about love and just be around positive people. So not that I agree with it, I just understand that that's the way they choose to handle that particular issue with their children. For me personally, we have the books on slavery and Harriet Tubman, so we talk about slavery, we talk about racism and the history of it, and we also go further back and talk about the kings and queens, and that it doesn't hurt your child to know the truth or hurt them to know what really happened, a real history. Is just the facts, right? And it's no different than teaching them math or any other subject. You know, how they take it, yeah, that could play effect, but that's more of a personal thing with that particular child. Some people rise up to the occasion and don't let it bother them. They'll keep pushing forward. I just want to be the fastest. I just want to be this. I just want to be that. And it really doesn't, hold much weight having this one conversation or multiple conversations with your kid. It's a reiteration that they have to live with and understand. It may play an effect on them.
All right. What about you, Brother Joe? You have any comment now?
Yeah, one of the challenges I see is the cycle that these kids are coming up under needs to be broken. From working at your former school in Ross County also, we know that the challenges that you have dealing with, kids coming from certain situations. For example, I did a study when I was at Centennial in '94, and 74% of the Black children were not with either parent. Talking about parent, they weren't with either one. So it's a real tough situation when you don't have righteous people that are doing the fostering or the group home or that situation. A lot of times it's just getting that money and really ain't giving, imparting nothing to the kids. So that's a big challenge. That's why I say the cycle's gonna have to be broken. I don't know how we're gonna do it, through community efforts or, people like me, you and Rascani that was at these schools, and like your other son, the school he's running, you need people like that to give these, children a hand, when they're not getting it, where they live. And I hate to, I don't want to talk about how dire the situation is, but I've seen the whole thing flip around just from the kids learning the truth about the history and culture and what we were before we got here. And so that's just something I wanted to add right there. But I tell you one thing that will help tremendously in any kind of parenting, where it's group home, false home, grandma, grandpa, Uncle Willie, whoever, cut that damn TV off. The television is raising too many kids. A lot of them think that stuff is true and try to emulate that kind of stuff. So that's number one when you're trying to get their minds to focus on something that's real, like education and what have you. Definitely had to get that in. I know in my household, when my youngest was coming up, there was no television Monday through Thursday. Couldn't be on, you had to be creative, had to be doing something. We kept her so busy, she had plenty to do other than sit in front of that television. But I know a lot of parents, be busy and tired and working, trying to cook and all that. And boy, get away from me, go on in there and watch TV. We know how it goes, been through that. But that's all I had to say at this time.
Well, parenting has changed a lot in the Black community, from parents that great grandparents that they didn't have birth control, they grew up with big families. Even though they may not have been economically solid in many ways, maybe a working father, or maybe just poor from economic, they had a lot of love there. But sometimes people see children as crumb snatchers as they get older and as a burden and holding them back, and they don't really, they get frustrated at being a parent. Hard-headed kids that won't listen. You try to give them advice, they don't listen. So they wear a lot of parents down, and these parents just give up and just say, hey, well, hey, you're gonna wish you had to listen to me. And when you get older, you're gonna be sorry that you didn't listen to me, type of mentality. And so you have that type of structure, coming up in the projects, coming up in poor areas where you may not have a working parent or both parents there working. Are you on welfare and a single mother? It has changed. Now you have families that are on welfare and men could be there, but in the early 50s all the way up to the 70s, men couldn't be in the house with the women. It was just mother and child on welfare. And then there's a lot of different things that have happened. The role of social media, how does that affect parents when your kids are getting more answers from the internet and Googling and Snapchat and all the other things versus getting information from the parent? So Aziza, what do you think about that? Does social media play a role in raising children today?
I'm gonna have to agree. I have one of my peers. His children are, I believe, 13 and 10 now. But years ago, they both had cell phones and tablets and computers, and they are glued to it like zombies. Whether it be online gaming where you can play games online with other people, or whether it was educational. And I thought that that was disturbing because they are so focused on those screens that they watch that they don't notice anything around them, you know, anything at all. So I'm gonna agree with you and say that it is true. I also agree with Brother Hembrick and what he said about um, the TV, raising children. Um, you know, I have another peer that that's all they do in their household is, just watch movies all day, every day, and they don't have nothing else going on. So I just think that it's kind of sad. For me, myself, I'm not trying to get into no habits or no cycles where, my child will be, stuck to a screen or watching TV all day. Um, Even though he's 19 months as of a couple of days ago, he's in his second session of swimming. I've already enrolled him in his third session. And before he took his first session of swimming, he was doing gymnastics. So I pretty much got like a lot of things lined up, one after another. When we finish one thing, we're going to start another thing. And I know this is not part of the topic, but like my car stalled yesterday. So I could have stayed in today and I took my kid out to go to his lesson, but I decided at 8 o'clock this morning that I was going to take the bus, and we took the bus, and I still, took him to his obligation because, it was a commitment that I made for him to do that or whatever. He's not old enough for me to talk to him about, other issues, but, and being black, but in the books that I buy him or whatever, I make sure that it's people that look like us. And if he does happen to watch something on television or social media, they look like us. I was able to find a Cartoon Network that's educational and informational, and their Africans or whatever, and they're called Ubongo kids. And out of all the different, kids programming, PBS, and any of the other names that I'm not, I don't really know. I liked it them because they teach Swahili, their lessons in Swahili as well as English, and it's numbers and alphabets and stuff like that. So I just feel sad for those other households that don't, do anything to, ensure that they kids get some structure and activity in their life. And I'm gonna just end it on that note.
And that's some very good points you raised. But see, a large percentage of the African American community is not as resourceful as many Black people of working class Black people are Black people that are conscious. Many of our brothers and sisters that are parents, some of them just wanted a baby, or some of them took on an attitude that I want a baby, but I don't know how to deal with them as they grow, and shaping their minds, their attitudes, and their understanding and their vision of their future. And so some parents get lost, they have a baby because they think the daddy gonna marry them, or they have you give her a baby, you think she gonna stay with you, and then it don't work out. Raising children comes from different family structures and different structures, but it's good to have parents who have, one or two children that they can put time and energy in, or maybe up to 4 that you can really handle. As far as paying for them to play sports or to get into extracurricular activities, and you can monitor them. But at the same time, some people argue that hurts the Black population as far as adding to more Black people that we need. And at the same time, they talk about the financing of raising a child in a way in which they can have the type of activities. I mean, even if you put your kid in Pop Warner, you put your kid in baseball, those are expensive things, not counting the gas and the time that goes into that activity. So my point is that, sometimes it's hard for working class and some people to see the challenges that some parents have when they have children with different fathers and they're trying to be, and different mothers, and they're trying to be parents. The reality is that sometimes people think the whole world is their household. But when you go out and you look up and down the street, how do homeless parents raise their children? And there's a disproportionate of Black people in families that are homeless. How do families, mixed families, how do they deal with the consciousness that's necessary and the education that's necessary? What role do the school do? And, there's a lot of factors that we have to look at, but Rashiki, you have any comments now?
Yeah, I have a few. Now, I think that the issue, one of the main issues with parenting is that I have a saying that we have a whole bunch of grown kids. So how could a kid raise children when you have the mentality of a 5 and 6 year old? You stuck in a stage in your life where you don't recognize really what you're supposed to be doing as an individual that's of parenting age. And then you have a child and you're stuck on what they say stupid, because you're stuck in stages where you still don't really know what to do, and you just surviving because you're able to survive in a racist society that's going to allow you to do certain things, and you get caught up. It's a whole. Basically, most parents, I would say, are confused. So it's a problem in the outset when they become parents, because what parent that we know, how many parents plan their children? And see, that's an issue. If you're not even prepared for them. My first two children, I wasn't prepared for because they weren't planned. And I know that's a difficult thing to plan children, but one of the main issues is parents that don't basically not ready to be a parent, and they didn't even prepare to be a parent. So there's some issues right there in the outset of having children, you know. So it's a lot to deal with when you don't know what you're doing. You don't even know how to handle yourself. How are you gonna parent other children when you act like a child? I'll give you an example. I went to Denny's this morning, and this is kind of sad to say. I was in the restaurant, and about 4 or 5 booths away from me, it was some black women cussing out of control in the middle of the restaurant where everybody can hear them. Now, what parent, who would want to be the child of those parents, a conscious kid, when they can't even control themselves? So that's a big issue, you know, and it has a lot to do with racism, because you're brought up in a racist society and you taught to be a certain way, and you just fall right in line with the negativity that's put your way. So it's a great challenge. When you have a lot of parents that need parenting. So with that saying that, you know, people have to recognize, I need to make some, if you are a parent and you're not highly successful, you got to recognize and start becoming a more educated person. You know, like Sister Aziza, she's a young parent. She visit the podcast to get information to help her learn how to do things with her child. You know, she did a presentation, and part of her presentation, she was talking about, you know, getting advice on parenting a young black son. So it's a challenge, just as life is. It's a challenge, and we have to come into the knowledge of, you know, things are not the way they should be. So we have to get educated. And I wanted to say that education diffuses, just like Brother Shaheed was saying, you know, how he deals with his children. And like Professor Rahh in his classes and in his counsel, he talk about family meetings. So there's some challenges out there. And definitely one of the biggest challenges is the parent themselves, the parents. Okay, Professor Rahh.
Well, you know, a lot of people blame families and parents for children that are not doing what they should be doing. If they're not getting good grades in school, if they're having a discipline problem in school, if they're hanging out with the wrong kids, people say that's the parent job to train that kid or to develop that child to be more disciplined and more focused on their life. And when you see children that are not doing that, there's a tendency to say, I wonder where their parents is, and I wonder why, you know, their parents didn't raise them to do better. I mean, you see young kids walking down the street with sagging, or you see them disrespecting elders, or you see them, acting out gang-related identities, even if they're not even in a gang. they seem to be attracted to wanting to do their own thing at an early age. And so you blame the parents a lot of the time. Then there's good parents that do everything for their children, and their children still are not doing what they should be doing. Some of them get mental issues, some of them there's a lot of factors that we have to factor in. But at the same time, parenting is a challenge. And as you said, it affects the Black community as a whole. You're in the neighborhood, if you got children out there and your kids are interacting with them, but they got parents that may get high in front of their kids, and your kids going over to their house, and are parents with a drinking problem, and then there's some kids that have neighborhoods where they look out for each other, and all the parents are working class or are concerned about all the youth in their neighborhood. There's a lot of factors that go into, as Rashiki was saying, the adults that act like their children or act like they don't think their role is to raise their children, just to provide, that's it, and let them grow on their own and go through the hard knocks of life on their own. And, for whatever reason, they're tired, they just don't have the skills, don't have the patience. And there are a lot of factors that go into why some parents don't do what they should be doing or should have done. And as Rashiki says, sometimes it's because, I didn't bargain for this. I didn't want to be a parent, but I didn't want to have an abortion. I didn't want to put them up for adoption. So, that'd be an issue. The diversity of family structures and parenting structures in our community, we don't take into consideration. Sometimes we just say them some bad kids, or them parents just ain't doing their job. I'm gonna call the police on them or call social welfare on them and let them take the kids. You have those type of attitudes out there. But at the same time, as people don't realize, like Rashiki say, many times you don't plan to be a parent. You just, without having sex, and the kids came. And now you are left with this responsibility, because parenting is a lot of responsibility. You're over somebody's life. And it's not just, I love them, but I don't want to raise them, attitude. So any comments on that aspect? Chai, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, that a lot of like the other said, kids are being born on accident. And once you get into parenting, maybe at the beginning you just thought, oh, I'm a parent now, but man, it's work. If you had a good parent, they made it look easy. Because I know you made it look real easy. I'm looking like, man, it is work being a parent. Just worried all the time. You making sure that, from getting too much electronics to getting them outside, to getting exercise, to eating right, to it is work. Making meals, teaching them how just the simple things that you take for granted, just wiping your butt, man. It's work being a parent. That's hard work. And if, being a good person or whatever, if you came up with that work ethic, that's one thing, but it's also another thing to come up with that work ethic. And then for a lot of guys, to see that nowadays is, oh, that's the ladies' work. I go to work, and that's what I do. When I get home, I just need a meal and I'm going back to work. Man, going to work is easy. I'll take work over watching the kids every time. Going to work is easy. They're watching being a dad is work.
Yeah.
So I already know I got patience galore. So I know his brothers out here losing it instantly in a month. They done with being a dad.
Yeah.
Hey, can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Hembrick. What do you always say?
Apple don't fall too far from the tree.
No, you have something else you be saying too. It'll come to you, but I come back to it a little bit later. Go ahead, Ron.
There's some things I like to chime in a little bit here.
Go ahead.
You know, I tell.
Wait a minute, Hembrick. Hold. Hembrick, what did you say? You said that once you have children, it's not about who?
I'm good. That's what I'm just getting ready to say.
Okay, go ahead.
I tell people that, especially some of my young guys that play ball for me and students and whatnot, that when your children are born, your life is over. All your partying, all your social thing, hanging out with your friends, you have to see to that child. And that's the task. I know, and you know, when you talk about responsibilities and whatnot, well, first of all, let me talk about my thing that, you know, the way I grew up. I grew up in the projects down in Harbor City. Police killed my father when I was 10. I was going to school with white folks down there, so I was getting educational stuff, wasn't getting nothing black, but like I mentioned, I think before, I did get some gardening stuff. You know, we had horticulture and all that other kind of stuff. And so moving to Compton, I never seen all black in my life until that time. And just the differences, you know, it was a little higher socioeconomic thing. But my stepfather, who brought us to Compton, you know, I used to hate the way he worked me. Like I said, at my house was, you got yard work to do every day. Ain't no yard work to do, wash the car. That was the rule. The car stayed so clean, I could have ate off of it. And we had dogs, pigeons, and about 6 fruit trees at the pool. I was doing that every day and hung up clothes before I went to school. Okay. And my mother taught me a lot of things, you know, they stayed together maybe about 4 or 5 years, and then they broke up. But my mom taught me a lot of things, a lot of domestic stuff, household stuff, cooking, how to sew, how to make a bed. And she always told me, like, boy, I'm teaching you this so you don't ever have to depend on no woman. You ask them to do it, they don't want to do it, you know how to do it yourself. So I got in-house and out in the yard stuff to do. So, and plus they were heavy drinkers, not my mom, but the men, uncles, father, stepfather, all of them was alcoholics. That's one thing I told myself. And this is what I mean when I say break the cycle. I told myself, I ain't gonna never be like that. That alcohol, you're gonna be fighting, wrecking cars, wanna jump on your woman, kick the dog, all that old stuff. So, you know, there's a cycle that we need to break, and another cycle, which I told my oldest daughter about having these kids just to get that check. You know what I mean? That's another whole cycle there. My oldest daughter, her mom did it, her grandma did it, great grandma, you know, the whole thing. And I tried my best with her. I was like the only dad that was going over there getting a child, you know, take them, you know, for the weekend and get them involved and stuff. But you have to, I want to mention this about parenting with kids, which I told my oldest daughter all the time, and she just lost 3 kids, the oldest daughter. The daddy got the 2 small ones and the grandparent got the other one. And one of them declared, what do you call that, emancipation, because she was so crazy. That's why I talk about breaking the cycle. You know, we have to break the cycle of some of these things that's been holding us back. But anyhow, you know, kids need stability. Stability is something that gives a kid confidence that they can take into other areas. If you moving every 6 months here to there and all that, that's bad for a child. And guess that's all I want to say at this point. But yeah, you know, when your children come, your life is over. But how many adult African Americans want to go by that? They still want to do their thing. You know, hey, keep my kids for me. You don't know what the hell's going on over there. You know, like I said before, I never let my youngest spend the night at nobody's house. None of that. And I kept her engaged. Sports, the science museum, the science center down by Exposition Park, all that. Every summer, we was in all of that stuff. Music lessons, the whole thing. Keep them engaged and keep that television off, and you'll be surprised. But I tell a lot of parents that, you know, the kid, you know, they try to give them everything, and kids still end up messed up and all this and that. I tell them, you create your own monsters. So don't go around trying to blame a whole lot of other things about what's going on with your kids. You create your own monster. So when things ain't going right, just look in the mirror. And pretty much you see the culprit right there. And another thing I want to say before I get off right now is the responsibilities of parenting. I mentioned before, you know, how I call my wife MacGyver. You know, she fixes everything around her. I can't fix jack. But when my daughter, the youngest, was small, my wife had a real big job and she was rarely at home. So I took on those responsibilities, you know, taking to school, pick up, going to the lessons, cooking dinner, giving the bath, the bedtime story, the whole nine. That was on me for like 6 years. So for like 6 years, when it came to Mother's Day, I was looking for a card my damn self. Where's my Mother's Day card at? But anyway, it was enjoyable. And I tell people when they got small kids, I tell them you better enjoy it because the time goes by fast. And
okay, that's a challenge. One time I remember reading in Dr. Amos Wilson's book. He said, whenever you have people that say they don't understand their kids, it's because they don't know them. You have to know your children. And you can't just know them based on you loving them and excusing them. You got to be able to pick up their strengths and their weaknesses. And you have to be able to try to work on those weaknesses and continue to develop them strengths. But you see a lot of people say, I don't understand these kids today. Well, that's because you're not paying attention to what's going on with kids today. And that's a challenge that we got to look at. Aziza, you want to say anything?
No, except for that I agree with everything that was stated about you know, being a parent is work. It is. It's a full-time job. It's a lot of planning and coordinating and just being in sync, you know, with your children, teaching them. But yeah, I just agree with all that. It truly is a task, and not everybody is up for the challenge. But those that have kids, I believe should, you know, take the responsibility and, you know, and be the parent and not just be, you know, just somebody that's in your child's life, you know, but actually, like, you know, be the parent, the protector, you know, the nurturer, you know, the lover, you know, everything that your child needs and should have, you know, from a parent. I think all kids should have it, and it's sad that all kids don't.
You know, there's a lot of people, like some women who are single parents say, I can't, if they have a boy baby, I can't teach you to be a man. And then there's a lot of fathers that are be single fathers and parent, and they say, I can't teach you to be a woman. And sometimes, you know, that creates a problem. And sometimes they excuse the behavior of their children. And then it's hard to cultivate maturity in children, to get them to see a future, a plan for a future. and to find out what they really enjoy. May it be learning music, may it be sports, may it be art. Sometimes it's a problem. Then you look at some parents let the schools be their caretaker of their children. Sometimes schools have the children more than the parent. 6 hours of interaction, sometimes when they're young with the same teacher. So, and then at the same time, when they go home, the parent don't spend that much time with them. And less more, getting them involved in constructive behavioral development activities. So there's some pointers. And really, all y'all made some great points. And it's obvious you're good parents. Everybody's on the air, on the Zoom. Parent generally means two, pair. But at the same time, that, there's two sides of truth, a female and a male. And even when you have same sex, one is playing the male, one playing the female role. But the point is that, we are in a challenging situation where there are many single parent women raising children, multiple children by different fathers. And at the same time, there are many women raising children and the fathers choose not to be contributors. They're just good daddies, come by on birthday, Christmas, but as far as the day-to-day needs of a child, they're not there. Taking them to the doctor, picking them up, taking them to school, they ain't around. And sometimes that creates a problem and a frustration for the mother, and sometimes they take it out, or the father, the single parent, they take it out on the children. Sometimes they are frustrated that they didn't get as far as they should have gotten in life. Some of them are not working, and as Brother Henry is saying, having babies just to get a bigger slice of government support. But at the same time, most parents do love their children from an emotional attachment, but from a developmental attachment, the work that goes into it, as Shahid said, some people just are not equipped. They rather watch TV than watch their kids. They rather be on the phone. You can go by the school and you see parents picking up their children and the kids get in the car, but the mother's on the phone and never look at the kids. No hug, no kiss, no how's your day. She just talking on, or him, just talking on the cell phone and not really, engaging the kid. And they may look at him and say, how you deal with parents that don't care about their kids' grades or not that concerned about them, And then at the same time, some kids turn out good, even though they come up in dysfunctional situations. Some single parents do better than two parents. So, it's a diverse situation. But one thing that all of you, I think, will agree, that you have to be in physical shape to raise children. It's like getting in combat, as Shahid said. It's like preparing for a challenge, and most parents don't know that. You have to be in physical, mental, and spiritual shape. You have to have an ideology or philosophy about children. Not that they're just babies. What is your philosophy? Do you see them as diamonds in the rough, as the future and an asset that contribute to the family intellectual and economic wealth in the future. To have a future doctor, to have a future lawyer, to have a future educator, to have a future productive child, entrepreneur, whatever. But do you have a philosophy that entails that vision and how you get that across to the child? Raising young men, especially Black males. You have to teach them discipline, so they can learn self-discipline. How to say no to peers, and how not to let peers influence them more than you. You have to develop a loving relationship where they're more concerned about hurting you and disappointing you than, that hurts them when they hurt their mama. They owe it to you not to have you coming down to schools for discipline problems, getting calls from the school because you're a discipline problem. Or the neighbor down the street saying your kid was in my yard stealing. Or I saw your kid on the corner smoking. They owe it to you not to get into those type of things. But you have to train your children, family obligation and a connectedness in a relationship. So you as a parent must first have a ideological or philosophical value system for children. And that loving of the child got to extend more than just an emotional attachment and more than just you being an ATM machine. That you have to have a deep connection of communication with your children. And that takes communication. There's some parents never talk to their children about life, about politics. They hear them screaming at the TV and screaming on the phone with friends, but do you really engage? And at one time, that's what family dinners were about. You sit around the table. Well, now they don't have them like they used to. But do you sit around and have family educational and consciousness discussions and meetings? I know my children used to get angry, not angry, but I say, we got a meeting. Get on the green couch. We got to talk. And how was your school day? Anybody bothering you? Anybody approaching you? If you have any teacher, anything. How your grades, and then you look for, but anyway, that whole concept of being in physical shape, and as Rashaki said, and as Joe said, you as a parent have to give up your life. It's just like when a woman is carrying a baby for 9 months, they can't be at the club, partying, they got to watch what they eat, watch what they do, watch what go in their bodies. And, they have to, be in good physical shape to deliver that baby. So being in physical condition before and after you have children is very important. I used to open up the gym 5 a.m. and my kids couldn't come except on the weekend because they had to go to school, but they came. We had free tutoring. I did as much for the community, but I also wanted it for my children. Use your skills, be creative as a parent. The other thing is that you have to be spiritual. A sense of morality and ethics in your children's presence. You can't say, don't do as I do as I say. You can't have a drug fest. Some parents can get away with it. Don't get me wrong. I know parents that their children know they get high, know that they smoke. It don't bother them, and they didn't start. The kids didn't, but they accepted it because the parent knew how to handle whatever substance they were drinking or smoking, and it didn't affect their parenting. But that's their choice. I chose to not even have it around as a parent because I didn't want my kids exposed that liquor was good or drugs were good. You know, you have enough drugs with just medicine to keep you from catching colds and treatment. So anyway, that was very important. But having a morality and talking to your kids about morality. I did a video today about violence, and my parents. Somebody hit you, you hit them in the head and run home. Get a stick, knock shit out, and run home. Whereas I try to tell my kids, diffuse situations, get out of the situation. First thing you learn about fighting is how to run from one. That was very important, but be prepared if you have to fight, be prepared, and that's very important. We have to understand the importance of history in parenting. And as Shahi was pointing out, not just the history of what the European teaches that you come up in slavery, but that they want, Barack was the first Black president in the United States, but he wasn't the first Black president. Because we had kings and we had presidents all through Africa way before Barack Obama was elected. So, you teach that history, the richness of our culture, and the uniqueness of having soul, a spiritual being, our soul, in our songs, in our gospel, in our food, in our, that's why they call it soul food, soul music, soul spirituality, soul, we have a uniqueness that others try to mimic. Whites try to mimic. Others appreciate that deepness that we have in our spirituality. Then we got to have discipline, educational discipline, teaching kids to do homework. As Aziza was saying, and seeing to it that the kids realize the value of learning the Eurocentric knowledge like Malcolm did, but keeping your Blackness in your consciousness. You're learning this because that's the environment you're in. But and this is going to help you, hopefully vocationally or intellectually in your pursuit for either a professional position or entrepreneurship. So you learn the system and realize the value of learning. And that's educational discipline. Kids that play all the time. You can't, that's why they call themselves players. When they get old, I'm just a player. Well, I got 3 kids, but I was just playing. It don't go that way. The subliminal suggestion of role playing that television presents. People spend millions of dollars on advertisements because they think that will get you influenced to buy their product. And you sit and your kids watch hours of violence, and then you want to know why they violent, as if that's not subliminally suggesting this is how you solve problems. So education and economic education. One thing I love about Shahid, our men, them, they're teaching their kids about investments. My dad, you ask him for a quarter, what? A quarter? What you gonna do with the quarter, boy? You better go in there and make a jelly sandwich. I mean, that was the way we came up. But my kids, they're into economics and into diversity, talking about Bitcoin and all that stuff, cryptic funds. I said, bless them, they realize the importance of buying a home and stability, that's a beautiful thing, and stability, as Joe was talking about, And that's very true, you know. And the neighborhood, when you rent a house, you rent the neighborhood. When you buy a house, you buy in the neighborhood. So, you know, sometimes you have to be conscious of that. You know, and the whole foundation of all that understanding will be their history. But learning economic discipline, the value of money, how to save. You know, my grandson was with me today. He said, Papa, I won $2 off of this. People guessing what this animal is. And he still had the $2 in the bank. You know, I'd take me to the store, man. I'm to spend this, you know, when music's coming up. You know, we gonna get some potato chips, something to drink, something, but these kids, you know, he's teaching his kids how to save. You know, whereas, you know, that was not even in our mind because we didn't see the future. I mean, I never thought I'd be a teacher or a professor or something like that. I didn't plan that. You know, I thought I was gonna be a basketball player or something. But it ended up that way. And then, as Joe said, I had to give up my street life to be a responsible parent. You know, I had to cut friends loose and don't do things that hurt the family or embarrass the family as a man. And so you as a parent have that responsibility. But teaching them self-discipline and how you get them motivated and inspired, as Aziza said, taking them and exposing them. As the saying said, I don't have to live in Alaska to know it's cold up there. You know, you don't have to live like Jesse Jackson said. I may have been born in the slums, but the slums wasn't born in me. You know, you expose your kids, and you know, I had a wife that exposed the kids to things. Some things I didn't like, but you know, that was them. That's their secrets. You know, I find out years later what they were exposed to, but you know, but it helped them. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So raising children is our biggest challenge, but it affects all of us and it hurts all of us when other parents are not carrying their load. So we need a Black overarching movement to do what Joe and what Rasaki is saying. Start preparing young people for the whole concept of being a parent before they even start thinking about it. You know, I mean, you know, you start talking about it in junior high. That's what they had home economics about when we was coming up. So, you know, exposing children to the values and the ethics of parents. That is not just a wild thing. You know, you do your thing, I do mine. Don't nobody touch my kids. I raise my kids the way I want to raise them. You know, you got attitudes out there. But make your home a home that the kids in the neighborhood love to come around. Because there's always stability, education, activities that, irregardless of you raising your kid, like Rasaki and Brother Hembrick, when they went to Centennial, they tried to teach them kids the same way they taught their kids at home. Give them some special knowledge, some sacred knowledge, some mystery system knowledge, some, let me drop a lug on you. I mean, this brother developed a mule with Latino greats and pyramids and African pyramids and African heroes and heroines, and discuss about the diversity and the richness of their culture. Because he know that they needed a historical foundation to see themselves other than how society was steering them. And some listened, some didn't, but at least they tried. And that's what I'm saying about the neighborhood. You know, if you can help other parents who are not doing what they're supposed to do, you know, that'd be a good thing in sharing. Any comments, closing comments? Nobody got, go ahead, Shaheed.
I was about to say, I don't have too much else to say. But just for the record, your grandson is up to 250.
It's $250.
Saved up. He said I told him he said he gonna buy a house. I told him that's what you should do. He said, I want to buy a house because I know my sister's gonna need a place to stay and I'm gonna set a curfew for him.
How old is he?
8.
All right. Okay. All right, Joe, closing comment?
Just that although those deficiencies are there, at least the ones that I had in my life when I was growing up, and how I feel those voids were from other men in the community. You know, a lot of people used to call me, man, you always act like an old man. Well, that's why I was hanging around so I could learn something. Because I figured out right away people my age group didn't know too much of nothing. So there was a few men, you know, the elder brothers in my life that kind of filled that void, you know, from losing 2 fathers. And it was real helpful. So that's what I tried to do in my working career, was to, you know, kind of set kids on the right path as far as, you know, life lessons and what you're prepared to do. And you know, like being a professional, you know, if you're gonna be a crook, then, you know, be a good crook. Go out and rob a bank or something. Don't be hitting your brother in the head, you know, for 50 cents. You know, go down there with $100,000 if you really want to be a crook, you know, stuff like that. And and as far as my, you know, my daughter, you know, she kind of went to, you know, the white educational route. I had her in school with all them Jews, but I was teaching her all along, you know, about her history and whatnot. And surprisingly so, there was a couple of teachers out there that was teaching some truth. And I thought they were gonna get fired, but you know, they didn't. But anyway, like we be coming home, you know, and this is another subject gonna help, but I'm just gonna put this point in. Like, you know, our kids like McDonald's and Happy Meal and all that. So when she would get in the car, and you know, I was going out in Long Beach, take her to school. So we come home and I give her a handful of change, and I've counted it already. You know, I say, if you can't tell me the exact amount of that by the time we get to McDonald's, I'm gonna keep on going. You know, so she learned to get on that money and count it and be exact to get that little Happy Meal and whatnot. It is for parents. You know, if you want your kids to get into stuff and learn stuff, you know, have some rewards that they like. You know, money, other things that they like doing. Go to the skating, ice running, or what have you. But, you know, have something there. You got to dangle that carrot. And from, you know, at times to get them motivated, you know, to want to get into it. And I love what the sister said, first one, Aziza, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, about having her son and all kind of activities and stuff coming along. That's great. That's great. So they can find their way, because you never know what a kid is going to take to. You know, that's why you expose them to many things as you can and let them decide, you know, what's best for them. I know my daughter, you know, when she was in elementary, she was a great reader and writer. But she told me, say, Dad, I want to be a doctor. I said, well, if you want to be a doctor, you have to master math and science. That's what doctors got to know. And so she made the switch and, you know, put the same effort and start acing all them math and science classes. She's in medical school right now. But her first gift was reading and writing when she was elementary, like first, second, third grade. So, and you got to teach our kids that, you know, like they are a pearl inside that shell. You know, parents got to know that, but most of them don't. And so that's why I say we need to break that cycle, the mental cycle first, and then on down the line, so these kids have a chance to, you know, to have a decent life. Go ahead, brother. I know you're ready to say something.
Go. Oh.
Shaheed look like to say something. Go ahead, brother.
You were saying all that good stuff. I was just thinking, man, you just gotta have somebody like you in their life where they feel loved, they feel guided, they feel believed in and empowered, and having somebody, pull all that energy into you, it's enriching. And sometimes, a lot of people do not know what they want to be in life. Granted, you got some kids that I want to be a ball player, I want to be a doctor, I want to be this, but without the proper person behind them or motivation behind them, motivating yourself is a challenge itself. Is very few individuals that can do that and stick to that by themselves. But with the proper guidance and somebody else believing in them, even if it was a rapper, you're like, hey, I'm your number one fan. I know you're gonna be it. Other people may hate your stuff. Don't matter. Somebody's gonna like it. We was just watching some cat last night that he went viral rapping about cats. He a cat guy. And he done went viral and made millions. It is what it is. He there, he made it, So I'm just like it, whether it's doctor, lawyer, whatever it is, when the kids say it, you want to empower them, you got that parent behind them with all that love, it can go far. As long as you believe, they'll believe it too.
That's good. Asante for that. Aziza, you have any closing comment? What about you, Rashiki? Oh, go ahead,
No, not
Aziza.
at, I was gonna say no, not at this time. It was a great discussion, and I was, glad to, partake in it.
All right, Brother Rashiki.
Yeah, well, I would say that parents could contact the website, and if we have people that are part of this team that can give advice and consult, so this platform, Conscious Corner, the CEN show, the website is a resource. If anybody that need help or need some advice, they can contact the website, and we could email them back with some solutions. So there's resources, and we're providing one. This discussion this evening could enlighten somebody. So I just want to share the screen with everyone so they can see how they can participate and become a person that come and ask for advice. So I'm about to share the screen and people can see how they can come on and be a part of what we're doing. So this is the communityeducationnetwork.com. And as you can see, here's Conscious Corner with Amin Rahh and Joe Hembrick. The show this evening. We have Wednesday, we have Dr. Mike's coming on, perceptions about our life force, energy, spirit, and soul. Then we got Mr. Bobby on Thursday. This is a special show because it's kind of difficult to get Mr. Bobby. He's the co-host of the Counter Racist Code Show. And this is basically how you can get in with the Zoom platform. All you got to do is click. So that's about it, Professor Rahh.
All right.
Anything else?
Yeah, as I conclude, I just want you to realize that you may not be at war, but you're definitely in a war to win the hearts and minds of your children. And you have to teach them to be politically conscious and politically aware, even if they're not politically active. Make them aware of their role in life, and that's how they can contribute to the liberation, the conscious liberation of our people. That they are descendants of Africa, and that they're descendants of a great legacy. That they serve as the moral vanguard of the world. People from all over the world use our struggle and our development as a model to emulate. That we got heroes and heroines in our struggle, and that you have to become a hero and heroine to your child as a parent. And that you have to focus on what's going on not just in your community, not just in your personal life, but in the world. You have to understand about climate change. You have to understand about hygiene and the mental and spiritual hygiene. And you have to teach your kids to think and to question. As Joe would say, Professor Hembrick would say, question religion. Don't just take it and just accept that, you're gonna fly away without an airplane ticket, and that there's life after death. There may be, but question. But at the same time, be aware of the world. We call it, just world consciousness. What's going on with your brothers and sisters in Cuba, your brothers and sisters in Mexico, your brothers and sisters in India, your brothers and sisters in Australia. Be a Pan-Africanist of consciousness. And then at the same time, have the fortitude and the attitude that you're not gonna let nothing hold you back from your goals and your aspirations in life. No racism, no intellectual barriers, no self-doubt. That is all a part of being a strong parent. And as Aziza said and Joe said, you got to be an example for your children as far as morally, ethically, and principally. But above all, you got to teach them to love and care for their siblings, and that they got to help with the parenting. The older children have to help with the younger children. And if they don't have no younger brothers and sisters, they have to help with the chores and the responsibility of the household, as Brother Hembrick was talking about, he was trained. We need an overarching movement, because the foundation of our liberation is going to be our families and our parenting, because that is where the child understanding the life begins with the parents, the baby. And then you send them out into the world. You don't want the world to change them. You want them to change the world for the betterment of us as a people. So we want to say Asante Sana to everyone. Thank you for listening. And I think that, we're going to be having other roundtable discussions on issues that affect the Black people in America. That we see Black people as sacred people, that we only talk positiveness. We don't talk about Black people ain't doing this, Black people ain't doing that. No, we talk about what they're doing good. And I want to thank each and every one of you. Say Asante Sana, which is many things. Grains of sand is a few compared to the many things we offer you for being on the show and participating. And hope to see you at the next Conscious Corner. And we'll be letting Rashaki know who our next guest will be. So Asante Sana, and thank you very much. You can cut it off, Rashaki.